As soon as Dr. Velrus got off the transport shuttle, she could feel her breathing machine working hard to keep up with the thick, humid air. She blinked her 4 eyes quickly as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Every database in the collective's archive says that this planet should be empty. HD 98732 was put in the Death World Class 9. There shouldn't be any intelligent life here, let alone a thriving settlement. But there it was. New Haven looked like an impossible dream in front of her. The metal walls of the prefabricated buildings shone in the harsh orange sun. Kids ran between the buildings, laughing and chasing each other with sticks. Real kids playing outside without any protection. There were sounds of hammering and welding along with casual talk. A speaker played music from somewhere in the distance. The red forest swayed in the wind beyond the edge of the settlement. Howls that were deep and guttural came from inside those trees. They made Velrus's skin crawl with fear. Her kind had evolved on a peaceful garden world where the biggest threat was about the size of her hand. Every instinct for survival told her to get back on the shuttle and leave this horrible planet behind. A woman walked up, wiping sweat off her forehead with a dirty cloth. She was tall for a Velrus, wearing plain canvas pants and a sleeveless shirt that showed off her muscular arms. No armor for the body. No weapons in sight. There wasn't even a communication device that Velrus could see. "You must be the scientist from the collective," the woman said, reaching out her hand in the human way to greet him. "I'm Beth, the colony's manager. Welcome to New Haven." Velrus gently touched Beth's hand and noticed the calluses and how strong her grip was. "Dr. Velrus, a xenobiologist. I have to admit that I'm confused. Our scans showed that this planet couldn't be lived on." Beth laughed, and it was a warm sound that didn't fit in with the rest of the scene. "Yeah, we hear that a lot. Once you get used to it, it's not so bad. Come on, I'll show you around." Velrus couldn't help but hold her portable scanner tighter as they walked into the settlement. The device was showing her species that there were 16 different life forms within 100 meters that were very dangerous. But the people acted like they were in a park. "I see you don't have a perimeter defense grid," Velrus said, trying to keep her voice steady. "No plasma barriers, no sonic fences, and not even simple energy shields. How do you keep the native animals safe?" Beth looked at the forest and shrugged. The way she did it was so casual that it made Velrus's heart skip a beat. "Most of the animals here leave us alone if we don't bother them. We had some problems at first, but things got better once we set up our territory. The local predators figured out pretty quickly that humans aren't easy to catch." Velrus stopped moving. "Set up your territory? Against Class 9 predators?" "Yes, of course. We had to make it clear that we belonged here." Beth talked about it like she was giving gardening advice, not how to stay alive when monsters could tear through steel. They kept going through the settlement, and with each step, Velrus got more and more confused. Tom, a man, was moving steel support beams from one pile to another by carrying them on his shoulder. Each beam had to weigh at least 200 kilograms. Tom didn't have on an exosuit or any anti-gravity tools. He was just carrying them and his face was red from the effort, but he didn't look hurt or strained. Velrus muttered, "That's impossible," as she checked her scanner to make sure it was working. "Those beams should need help from machines to move." Beth looked where she was looking. "Oh, Tom is probably just trying to show off because we have guests. He could use the loader, but he wants to stay in shape." "Staying fit?" Velrus's species needed cybernetic upgrades just to lift half that weight. She typed a quick note on her data pad, and her tentacles shook a little bit as she did. Another person named Jake was fixing a part of the fence deeper into the settlement. Jake was holding the metal posts with his bare hands and twisting them into place without any safety gear. The temperature had to be at least 40 degrees. It was clear that the metal was hot from being outside, but Jake didn't seem to care. "Doesn't that hurt?" Velrus asked, unable to hide her surprise. If she touched metal at that temperature, her own kind would get very bad burns. Jake looked up and his face was covered in sweat. "What this?" "No, not really. Earlier when it was really hot, I wore my gloves. After a few months of working out here, my hands get pretty tough." He bent his fingers, which showed that his palms had thick calluses. "You're getting there, you know?" No, Velrus didn't know. Her kind didn't build up to very high temperatures. They were either safe or hurt. There was no in-between. With her shaking tentacles, she typed another note into her data pad. "People can handle pain and physical stress in ways that are outside of normal biological limits. Possible adaptation to harsh environmental conditions. More research is needed." A bell rang somewhere in the settlement, and people started to gather around a central building. Beth said it was time for lunch. Velrus watched them eat and talk while sitting on simple benches. Some of them had scars on their bodies from old injuries that would have ended the careers of any collective species. But these people were still working and laughing like everything was fine. Lisa, a woman, showed Velrus her arm, which had 3 scars that ran from her shoulder to her elbow. Lisa said with a smile, "I got those my second week here. One of the tree climbers in the area didn't like it when I got too close to its nest. It hurt like hell, but the doctor did a great job fixing me up." "You were attacked and you stayed?" Velrus didn't understand it. Lisa shrugged her shoulders. "Where else would I go? This is where I live now. Also, I learned my lesson about giving animals their space. Not a problem since then." As the sun went down, it painted the sky in purple and red. Velrus stood at the edge of the settlement again. The howls from the woods got louder as nighttime hunters woke up. Her scanner showed dozens of dangerous creatures moving through the trees, and some of them were heading toward the settlement. Beth was standing next to her, completely at ease. "Isn't the sunset beautiful? Don't you worry about the predators? Do they still come to the settlement?" Velrus asked. "And if they do, we take care of it." Beth's voice was so sure that Velrus almost believed her. Almost. As night fell and lights came on in New Haven, Velrus realized she was seeing something that had never happened before. These people had seen a death world, a planet that should have killed them in a few days, and decided to make it their home. Not just live but do well. They worked without safety gear, lived without fear, and adapted to situations that would kill any other species in the collective. Dr. Velrus had never felt real fear about a species before in her career as a xenobiologist. Not because they were mean or aggressive, but because they were so casually and impossibly strong. She didn't know that tomorrow would show her how dangerous that strength could be. When Velrus met the survey team outside the settlement gates, the air was thick and sticky. She didn't get enough sleep. The strange calls and distant roars of the forest at night had kept her awake. Her brain kept thinking they were threats that were happening right now. But the people slept soundly, as if the howling of deadly predators in the dark was just background noise. Beth came in with a backpack full of survey tools and the same casual work clothes she wore yesterday. She didn't wear any armor or a helmet, she just wore boots and a hat to keep the sun off her face. She smiled at Velrus in the same way that seemed so out of place on a world where people died. "Are you ready to see what this planet is really like?" Beth asked. Another person came up to Velrus before he could answer. He was shorter than Beth, had dark hair, and quiet eyes that seemed to see everything without saying much. He had a heavy pickaxe over one shoulder that looked like it was nothing, and a bag of things hanging from his belt. "This is Danny," Beth said. "He works in the mine. Knows the area better than anyone else." Danny nodded at Velrus but didn't say anything. His calm demeanor made me uneasy, like a still pond that might be hiding something dangerous underneath. 2 security guards from Velrus's ship made up the rest of the group. Both of them were from her species and were wearing full combat armor. They also had plasma rifles that could go through steel that had been reinforced. Seeing them made Velrus feel a little better, but she saw Beth and Danny exchange a funny look. "Do your people always travel this heavy?" Danny asked in a low voice. One of the security officers answered stiffly, "We prefer to be ready." Beth put her pack on her back. "Okay, let's go. We're going to the mineral deposits, which are about 2 kilometers to the east. Stay close, be careful where you step, and don't touch anything that looks colorful. It's probably poisonous if it's bright." As soon as they entered the forest, Velrus felt like she had entered a different world. The trunks of the trees were wider than the transport shuttle, and they were so tall that she couldn't see the tops. The red leaves let the sunlight through and made it look like it was glowing. There were vines everywhere, and some of them moved a little bit even though there was no wind. Her scanner went crazy with numbers. There were hundreds of living things around them, most of which were hiding in the canopy or underground. The device would ping every few meters to warn about something dangerous nearby. Velrus looked at the screen with one eye and the people with the other, wondering how they could walk so calmly through this nightmare. As they walked, Beth pointed out different plants and animals and told them which ones were safe and which ones would kill you if you got too close. There was a flower that shot darts that made you paralyzed. A type of moss that released poisonous spores when touched. A little lizard-like animal that could spit acid up to 10 meters. "How do you keep all of this in your head? How do you learn so quickly out here?" Velrus asked, her head spinning from all the dangers. "You don't get a second chance if you make a mistake." Beth suddenly stopped and raised her hand after they had been walking for about an hour. Everyone stopped. The forest was quiet. Velrus's scanner had been making noise the whole time they were in the woods, but now it seemed to be quiet. "Something's not right," Danny said quietly, gripping the pickaxe tighter. Beth's relaxed stance changed a little. Valrus could tell she wasn't tense, but her weight had shifted to the balls of her feet, which meant she was ready to move. Stay close. During breeding season, everything becomes territorial. The security team for Valrus raised their plasma rifles and looked through the trees and bushes. The silence was thick and heavy, and it felt like it was closing in on all sides. The bugs had even stopped buzzing all the time. Then Valrus's scanner made a noise so loud that she almost dropped it. The device was flashing red, and there were too many warnings scrolling across the screen too quickly to read. Her security team ran in circles, looking for the threat while their weapons tracked through the empty air. Up! Danny's shout broke the silence. Valrus looked up just in time to see death coming down on them. The Vorax fell from the canopy like a nightmare come to life. It was huge, at least 3 meters long, and its body was covered in shiny, overlapping armored scales. 4 strong legs ended in claws that were as long as Valrus's arm. The mouth was mostly the head, and it had rows of sharp teeth that were dripping with something that hissed and smoked when it hit the ground. Acid. The Vorax's spit was acidic. Valrus had looked at these creatures from space and read the reports from the last team that went there. She had read about how this species had killed off that whole team, leaving behind only rusted armor and bones. Even other dangerous animals were afraid of the Vorax, which was the most dangerous animal on this planet. It hit the ground with a loud bang that shook the ground, and right away its head turned toward their group. The roar that came from its throat wasn't just noise. Valrus felt it in her chest, felt it shake her bones, and felt her legs turn to water from fear. Without thinking, her security team opened fire. Plasma bolts shot through the air, bright blue-white energy that could melt through the hull of a ship. The bolts hit the Vorax right in the middle, and for a moment Valrus thought they had won. Then the thing shook itself like a dog that had just gotten out of the water and ran at me. The plasma had burned its skin and left black marks on its armor, but it hadn't broken through. The scales were too thick and heavy. The Vorax crossed the space between them in seconds, moving at an incredible speed for something so big. Valrus's legs wouldn't budge. Her mind was telling her to run, to do something, anything, but her body wouldn't move. She was going to die. Everyone was going to die. This thing had killed trained soldiers in full combat gear, and their group only had 2 unarmed people and security guards whose weapons couldn't even scratch it. As it charged, the Vorax's claws ripped up the ground. Its fangs dripped acid that ate into the ground. It looked at them with the cold, focused gaze of a predator that knew its prey was helpless. Danny then stepped up. Not back. Not to the side. Moving forward, between the charging monster and the rest of the group. He didn't have anything with him except for the pickaxe he had been using to collect mineral samples. No armor, shields, or advanced weapons. Just a mining tool, and whatever crazy idea made people think they could live on planets like this. Beth grabbed Valrus's arm and pulled her back, but Valrus couldn't stop looking. She was about to see a creature that weighed hundreds of kilograms more than a person tear them apart with natural weapons that could shred steel. The Vorax's roar made the trees shake as it got closer, and its jaws were wide enough to bite Danny in half. And Danny didn't run away. Not even a little bit. He just changed how he held the pickaxe and put his feet in a position that looked like he was going to do some work. He felt like he was back in the mines doing the same thing every day. Valrus wanted to yell at him to move, to run, to do anything but stand there and face certain death. But her voice wouldn't work. She could only watch in horror as 3 tons of armored predator came down on one unarmed person who thought a pickaxe was enough. The Vorax's shadow completely covered Danny as it jumped, its claws out and its acid-dripping jaws aimed at his head. Get back. Danny's voice broke through the noise, but he didn't yell it. He said it like someone might say that it was going to rain later. Calm down. Matter of fact. It was like he was talking about something that wasn't too bad instead of 3 tons of armored death. The Vorax's huge claw came at Danny's head so quickly that Valrus barely saw it move. She was sure she was about to see a head being cut off and a person being ripped apart right in front of her. She couldn't look away even though every instinct told her to. But Danny was gone. He ducked under the claw so quickly that it shouldn't have been possible for someone his size. The movement was smooth and practiced, as if he had done it 1,000 times before. As he stood up, the pickaxe in his hand swung in a tight arc that ended at the Vorax's shoulder joint, where the thick armor met the softer tissue. The sound of armor breaking echoed through the woods. The pickaxe went through scales that had shrugged off plasma fire and went deep into the joint. Danny's chest and face were covered in purple blood that hissed when it hit the ground, but he didn't even blink. The Vorax's scream was so loud that it hurt. It pulled back, trying to shake off the pain that this tiny creature had caused. Danny, on the other hand, kept the pickaxe, letting the creature's own movement pull the weapon free and make the wound even bigger. That's when the Vorax acted like any hurt predator would. It used everything it had to attack. Its head snapped forward faster than Velrus could see, and its jaws opened wide with its acid-dripping fangs aimed right at Danny's neck. Velrus thought it was over for a second. At this distance, no one could get away from something that fast. With a wet, horrible sound, the fangs dug into Danny's shoulder. The security team for Velrus was yelling and shooting their plasma rifles again, but they were scared of hitting Danny, so their shots went all over the place. Beth had pulled Velrus back behind a tree, but Velrus couldn't stop looking. She couldn't understand what she was seeing. The Vorax's bite should have killed it. The fangs were made to break through armor and bone, cut off limbs and crush skulls. The report from the last expedition team said that those jaws had ripped bodies in half. But Danny just grunted. Not a shout. Not even a scream of pain. He only made a low grunt like someone had hit him too hard. His face twisted but not in pain. With work. With focus. Then his left hand, which was free, came up and grabbed the Vorax's lower jaw. And he yanked. Velrus watched Danny's arm muscles tighten and relax, as well as his whole body fight against the creature's bite. The Vorax was trying to shake him and rip him apart, but Danny's grip didn't move. He pulled harder as his boots dug into the soft ground and found a grip. The next sound would stay with Velrus for the rest of her life. A wet snap like breaking a thick branch, but somehow worse. What? Organic? The Vorax's jaw broke. The creature let Danny go and staggered back, its lower jaw hanging at an odd angle and its scream turning into a gurgling rasp. It had purple blood coming out of its mouth, which mixed with the acid that was now eating away at its own flesh. Danny let go of the pickaxe. He put both of his hands on the Vorax's skull and held it on both sides. The creature was thrashing now, its huge body twisting and its claws raking across Danny's arms and chest. Velrus could see the wounds opening and Danny's blood mixing with the purple ichor that covered both of them. Danny, however, didn't let go. Velrus could see the Vorax's eyes sink in as his thumbs pressed against them. She could also see how the creature's thrashing became more desperate and frantic. The Vorax's claws dug into Danny's ribs and ripped through his shirt like it was paper, making deep cuts across his chest. Anyone normal would have let go and tried to get away. Pain was supposed to make you let go and put survival ahead of aggression. Danny held on tighter. His face was a mask of focus, with his lips pulled back from his teeth and every muscle in his body working hard on this awful task. He twisted his hands, and the Vorax's neck bent in a way that made Velrus's stomach turn. Another crack, this one deeper and louder. The sound of wood cracking like a tree trunk breaking under too much weight. The Vorax's back had broken. The creature's body went limp, and its nervous system was cut off, but it was still alive. It tried to breathe through its broken jaw, which made its chest rise and fall. Its eyes, or what was left of them, rolled around like crazy. Danny still had more to do. His hands moved from the creature's head to its throat, where his fingers dug under the edge of an armor plate. The scales there were smaller and looked like roof tiles. They protected the important blood vessels below. Danny's fingers found the space between two plates and held on. Then he tore. The armor plate came off with a sound like tearing metal. Then one more. Again. Danny was taking the Vorax apart piece by piece. His hands moved with methodical efficiency, even though his own blood was running down his arms and dripping from his elbows. He put his arm into the wound he had made, and it disappeared up to the elbow in purple gore. When his hand came out, it was holding something pale and broken up, with blood and fluid on it. The Vorax's back. Danny had reached in and ripped its spine out. The creature's body shook once, then twice, and then it stopped moving. Dead. Not only dead but also not made. Taken apart with bare hands and willpower. The fight had lasted for a full 90 seconds. Velrus had been counting without thinking, her scientist's brain trying to make sense of the impossible by breaking it down into data points and time stamps. It took 90 seconds for the Vorax to attack and then die. Danny stood over the dead body, breathing heavily, with his chest rising and falling like a bellows. There was blood all over him, both red and purple. His shirt was torn and hanging off of him, showing the deep cuts on his chest and arms. The Vorax had bitten him on the shoulder, and there was a lot of torn flesh and muscle showing. He looked down at the wound with no expression on his face, then turned to Beth. Going to need the first aid kit. His voice was steady. Not shaking. Not weak. He was just tired, like he had worked all day. Velrus's legs finally gave way, but only so she could fall against the tree she had been hiding behind. She dropped her scanner because her hands were shaking so much. The device fell to the ground and kept showing readings, including Danny's high heart rate, rising body temperature, and the mix of hormones and adrenaline that were flooding his system. But those numbers were already starting to look normal. His heart rate was going down. His temperature was going back down to normal. His body was already starting to heal from wounds that would have killed Velrus's species 3 times over. Beth was calmly taking out medical supplies and treating Danny's wounds like it was something she did every day. It was just another day on the colony to see someone rip apart an apex predator with their bare hands. The security team for Velrus stood still, their plasma rifles uselessly at their sides, looking at Danny with faces that Velrus knew. Fear. They suddenly realized that they had been worried about protecting the wrong species. There was an old word in Velrus's culture that came from texts so old that most people had forgotten what it meant. Vreskith. The unmaking. People said that the old gods of chaos had the power to destroy creation itself and tear apart the universe's basic order with their bare hands. Velrus had always thought it was a myth. Poetry was meant to show how powerful things are that we can't understand. But now she understood better. She had now seen it with her own eyes. Not a myth. Not a poem. Just a person doing what people do when they feel threatened. They took it apart. Beth dropped her backpack and took out a white medical kit. She knelt next to Danny with the kind of calm efficiency that made Velrus's head spin. The woman wasn't in a hurry or panicking. She opened the kit and started taking out things like she was getting ready to treat a scraped knee instead of wounds that would need emergency surgery for any other species. Beth said, "That was a big one," in a casual tone as if they were talking about the weather. "I haven't seen a Vorax that big in months." Danny sat down on a log that had fallen, and he winced a little as he moved his hurt shoulder. "Yeah. Most likely has young ones nearby. We should look for a nest before we go back." Beth was already spraying some kind of foam into the deep cuts on Danny's chest. The stuff hissed and grew, filling the wounds and somehow stopping the bleeding in a matter of seconds. "We'll call it in. Give it to the wildlife team. You're done for the day." "It's not that bad," Danny said, but he didn't stop her when she started wrapping his shoulder in thick bandages. Velrus finally spoke, but it was so quiet that it was hard to hear. "You killed it? With your hands? You killed a Vorax with your bare hands?" Danny looked at her, and there was real confusion in his eyes. "Had the pickaxe for most of it." "That pickaxe." Velrus's voice got higher than she meant it to. "You ripped its spine out. I saw you take it apart piece by piece." "Yes, but I started with the pickaxe," Danny said as if this were an important point. Like the tool he used for the first 5 seconds made the next 85 seconds less crazy in some way. Velrus's legs were shaking. She sat down hard on the ground, not caring about the bugs, dirt, or any of the other 100 things her scanner was warning her about. "You're kind. What kind of nightmare in evolution made you?" Beth really did laugh. The sound was warm and real, which was very different from the purple blood still dripping from Danny's boots and the body of an apex predator lying 10 meters away. She finished putting the bandage on Danny's shoulder and sat back on her heels. "Earth wasn't exactly a gentle place," Beth said with a smile. "We've been at the top of the food chain for a few million years. Had to work for it." "Top?" Velrus looked at her. "You're not top predators. You don't have claws, fangs, armor, venom, or any other natural weapons." "Not technically, no," Danny said. He was checking how far his shoulder could move by slowly rotating his arm in circles, even though a creature had just bitten through it deep enough to show muscle. "We're hunters who can last. I think scientists call it pursuit predators." "I don't get what that means." Beth got up and started putting away the medical supplies. "That means our ancestors didn't have claws or fangs either, so they had to think outside the box. They would choose an animal, usually one that was bigger and stronger than them, and follow it. For hours. Sometimes for days. Follow it. Humans can run longer than almost any other animal," Danny said again. He got up and moved slowly but surely, as if the wounds all over his body were just small problems instead of life-threatening injuries. "We're not quick, but we don't stop. Our prey would run away, stop, run away again, and then stop again. Eventually they wouldn't be able to run anymore because they were too tired. And then you'd kill them," Velrus whispered. "And then we'd eat," Beth said softly. It wasn't about being mean. It was about staying alive. There were many animals on Earth that were bigger and stronger than people. We lived because we were smarter and more stubborn." Danny picked up his pickaxe and looked at the blade to see if it was broken. The Vorax's acid had eaten small holes in the metal, but the tool still worked. "We're good at solving problems. You learn to use what you have when you don't have natural weapons." "Should head back," Beth said, looking up at the sky. "This much blood in one place will bring in scavengers. A few of them hunt in groups." Velrus tried to stand up as they walked back to the settlement, but her legs wouldn't let her. One of her bodyguards had to help her get up. The two guards looked shaken, and they didn't seem sure how to hold their plasma rifles. They had just seen their weapons fail against a creature that a single person had killed with only basic tools and a lot of willpower. Valrus walked close to Beth and watched Danny as he led the way back through the woods. His cuts were already starting to heal. She could see it happen. The blood flow stopped and the edges of the torn flesh started to close. It was faster than it should have been. If Valrus's species survived at all, they would need days in a medical pod to heal from injuries like that. Danny was walking normally, though he did use his pickaxe to move branches that were hanging low from time to time. He was breathing normally again. He wasn't limping or putting too much weight on his injuries. He would roll his shoulder every few minutes to see how it felt, and each time it seemed to get easier. Valrus took out her scanner with shaky hands and pointed it at Danny, trying to be quiet. Reading them made her head hurt because she couldn't understand them. His heart rate was high, but it was slowly going back down to what she thought was normal for him. During the fight, his body temperature had risen to levels that would damage her species' brains, but it was now returning to normal. There were also chemicals in his blood that her scanner couldn't find. These were hormones and other substances that seemed to be speeding up his healing. It was like Danny's body had a switch. From calm to deadly and back to calm again. His body had changed during the fight. It was now stronger, faster, and less sensitive to pain. And now it was changing back, going back to normal as if nothing had happened. Does this happen a lot? Does what happen often? Valrus asked, not sure she wanted to hear the answer. Beth answered, this. Vorax attacks. Battles with top predators. Beth thought about it for a moment as she stepped over a fallen tree. Once a month maybe? Sometimes more during the breeding season. But most of the time they are smaller. That one today was probably getting close to being an adult. Every month. Once a month they fought creatures that could kill trained military teams. And they said it was normal. Valrus felt weak. Her vision was blurry, and she didn't know if it was because she was shocked or because she realized what people really were behind their friendly smiles and casual talk. Are you okay? Beth asked, seeing Valrus trip. I need to sit down. They stopped and Beth helped Valrus lean against a tree. Danny turned around to check on them again, and even though his skin was still covered in purple blood, he looked worried. Is this your first time seeing real action? He asked, not in a mean way. Valrus nodded, not trusting her voice. It gets easier, Danny said. Everyone had a hard time the first few months here. But you get used to it. I guess that's what people do best. We change. He made it sound so easy, like getting used to a world full of creatures that could rip you apart was the same as getting used to a new job or a new climate. Like staying alive wasn't a constant battle, but just another problem to solve. Beth was making fun of Danny now, saying he needed a new shirt because his old one was ruined. Danny laughed, really laughed, even though he was covered in his own blood and the blood of the creature he had just killed. They started walking again, and Valrus made herself keep going. Her security team stood on either side of her, weapons raised and eyes scanning the forest for threats. But neither Beth nor Danny seemed worried. They walked like they were just out for a walk, stopping to talk about where to set up the next mining survey or point out interesting plants. As they got closer to the settlement, Valrus could hear the sounds of people living their lives. Kids playing, adults working, and music coming from someone's house. Everyone was going about their day, completely unaware that one of their own had just killed an apex predator with his bare hands just 2 kilometers away. That was the scariest part. This was normal for them. This was just how things were in New Haven. Face death, live through it, and then go back to work. Not a big deal. Not much. Valrus looked at Danny's back, where the bandages were already soaked with blood, and at the way he still held the pickaxe like it was just another tool instead of the weapon he had used to break open armored scales. She had come to this planet to learn about its ecosystem and how life could survive in such harsh conditions. But she was beginning to see that she had been asking the wrong question. The question was not how life survived here. The question was how anything lived after people decided to live there. Valrus was back on her ship, sitting alone in her room and staring at a blank report screen. Her hands were still shaking. They hadn't stopped since she got back from the woods 3 hours ago. She had tried to relax, eat, and do anything else that would keep her from thinking about what she had seen. But she saw it again every time she shut her eyes. Saw Danny standing over that dead Vorax, covered in blood, asking for a first aid kit like he had scraped his knee. She made her hands steady and started typing. At first the words came out slowly. How did you say something that shouldn't be possible? How did you tell the scientific council of the collective that what they knew about intelligent life was not complete? Subject: urgent recommendation for a new classification of humanity. She stopped, erased it, and started over. Subject: An assessment and reclassification of humanity as a species. Better. More businesslike. Less likely to sound like she was going crazy. Our current system for classifying intelligent life doesn't do a good job of describing the species known as humans. Standard categories presume that intelligent species evolved in either relatively secure environments conducive to cerebral development or in perilous settings that necessitated natural armaments and defenses. People don't fit into either group. Velrus stopped typing and looked out the window. From space, New Haven looked calm. Small buildings set up in neat rows with lights starting to come on as night fell. Playgrounds for kids can be seen near the center of the settlement. Places where people grew their own food. It seemed safe. She was civilized, but she knew better now. She knew what lived in the woods around the settlement. And she knew what the people did when those things got too close. She kept typing. Our classification system rates Earth as Class 9, the second highest danger level we've ever seen. This is where humans evolved. In the collective's records, only 2 other planets have reached Class 9 status, and both are thought to be permanently uninhabitable. But people not only lived on Earth, they thrived. Their evolutionary adaptations are unlike anything recorded in collective science. Unusual strength and endurance. People can keep moving for hours without stopping. Their heart and lungs are built for long periods of effort, not short bursts of speed. I saw a person carry gear that weighed more than 200 kilograms for long periods of time without any help from machines. Ability to heal quickly and handle a lot of pain. Saw a person get hurt in ways that would kill most collective species, such as deep cuts, muscle damage, and broken bones. These wounds started to heal in a way that seems impossible without advanced medical technology within hours. The person in question went back to their normal activities the next day. Velrus stopped again. That part still seemed like a dream. Before leaving the settlement, she had checked on Danny this morning. He was back to work in the mines with a bandage on his shoulder but still able to do his job. He waved at her as if nothing had happened. Advanced system for adrenal response. Human biology changes temporarily when it feels threatened. Strength goes up a lot. The response to pain gets weaker. Your senses get sharper. The time it takes to react gets better. People can quickly switch between calm and ready for battle states with this system. I have scanner data that shows these changes in the body, but I still don't fully understand how they happen. She sat back and rubbed her eyes, which were tired. There was a lot of data from the scanner, but it raised more questions than it answered. How could a species develop such an effective system for responding to emergencies? What kind of setting needed it? A method of hunting that doesn't change. People evolved into what they call pursuit predators, or endurance hunters. Instead of using speed or natural weapons, their ancestors would just follow their prey until it fell over from exhaustion. This required not only physical strength but also a lot of mental strength. It seems that the ability to keep going after a goal even when things go wrong, you are in pain, or you are tired is an important part of human psychology. Using advanced tools and solving problems when you're under a lot of stress. When people don't have natural weapons, they make do with what they have. They can quickly look around their surroundings, find possible tools or weapons, and use them well, even when their lives are in danger. This skill doesn't get worse when you're stressed. In fact, it seems to get better. Velrus thought about Danny using that pickaxe and how he had known exactly where to hit the Vorax to do the most damage. No second thoughts, no trial and error. Just quick, brutal efficiency. Based on what I've seen, I think humans should be moved from the standard intelligent life category to a new one called apex survivors. This classification shows that this species didn't rule their home world because they were naturally better at it or because they were good at one thing. Instead, they did it by being flexible and what humans call stubborn. They are not warriors by culture or choice. They are survivors because they evolved in an environment that tried to kill them for millions of years. Velrus saved the draft, stood up, and walked to the viewport. She could see the lights of New Haven getting brighter as the sun went down on the planet's surface. Danny was probably having dinner with his family down there somewhere. Beth was probably going over the work schedule for the next day. The kids were being put to bed, and they were probably looking forward to playing outside tomorrow. Outdoors play. On a world of death. Where top predators attacked once a month. And they called it home. She went back to her report and added a new part. Notes and observations about myself. I saw a human man named Danny kill a Vorax in direct combat while I was living with the human colony. The Vorax is the planet's top predator, and it killed everyone on the last expedition team. Our security guards, who had military-grade plasma weapons, couldn't hurt it. Danny killed it in less than a minute with a mining tool in his hands. What bothered me the most was not how violent the fight was, but how Danny acted afterward. He thought of it as normal work. something that got in the way of his day. He was making jokes about it within hours. The next day he went back to work as usual. There are kids in this colony who play near forests full of these animals. They don't have any perimeter defenses, energy shields, or automated weapon systems. Beth told me that the kids know to stay close to adults and make noise so that predators can hear them coming. They're teaching their kids how to live with creatures that would be considered very dangerous on any collective world. They are not afraid. Not because they don't know how dangerous it is, but because they don't see themselves as prey on a deep level. And I get why after watching Danny fight. They were never prey. They were the thing that scared other creatures on Earth. Velrys wiped her eyes and was surprised to find them wet. She didn't know if it was fear, awe, or something else. People didn't use claws, fangs, armor, or poison to take over their home world. They won with something much scarier, the fact that they would never give up. They got back up when they fell. They healed when they were hurt. They figured out a way to get through even when the odds were against them. 420 cycles. I have been a xenobiologist. I've looked at hundreds of species on dozens of worlds. I thought I knew how evolution, adaptation, and survival worked. I was wrong. People don't just change to fit in with their surroundings. They won't accept that any place is too dangerous for them. They see a Class 9 death world as a home. They run into apex predators and see a problem that needs to be fixed. They are in danger of going extinct, but they treat these threats like everyday problems. She read the whole report again, looking for mistakes and making sure she sounded professional and scientific instead of scared and upset. At the very end, she added one last line. Final recommendation: strongly recommend peaceful relations with people. This species has shown incredible friendliness and willingness to work together. I think they would be good friends. But I also think that any species that wants to hurt humans should know what they would be up against. A species that has lived for millions of years on a world of death by simply refusing to die. Velrys sent all of her scanner data, video recordings, and detailed notes. Then she sent the report to the Collective Science Council with a high-priority flag. She looked out the window one last time. By now, Danny was probably asleep, and his hurt shoulder was healing in ways that collective medicine couldn't explain. Beth was probably working on the survey routes for tomorrow. The kids were dreaming of adventures in forests that would scare the people of the collective. And in those woods, predators were learning to stay away from places where people lived. Finding out that those prey fought back. Finding out that some animals weren't worth hunting even though they didn't have claws or fangs. Velrys had come to this world to learn about its dangerous ecosystem. Instead, she found out that the native life on this world wasn't the most dangerous thing. The people who lived here had made the choice to do so. The scary part was that they didn't even know it. This was just how life was for them. This was normal. She opened up the line of communication with her bosses and sent them one more message, which was not part of the official report. To the council, I think you should approve humanity's request to join the collective. They would be great partners. But more importantly, I think we should never give them a reason to hate us. I don't think any of us would make it through. She sent the message and finally let herself sleep, but her dreams were full of purple blood and the sound of bones breaking.